Hi, friends. My name is Kimberly, and I was adopted by a royal family. I became a real princess with my own subjects and a real castle. But such a fairy tale life also has its downsides, which I will tell you about. It all started on that wonderful day when I found out that a couple wanted to adopt me. I was 8 years old then, and I had lost my parents not long before. They died in an earthquake. I hadn't had time to recover from their death when it was decided that I would be brought to another family. To be honest, I wasn't very happy. I refused to accept the fact that I was going to have a different mom and dad. I had parents, and they were going to try to replace them. I did think it would be better this way, though, because the conditions in the orphanage, to put it mildly, were terrible. As it turned out, it wasn't an ordinary family, but a royal one. I couldn't even believe it because I thought that such families only existed in movies and Disney cartoons. However, my adoptive parents told me that they ran a small kingdom and lived in their very own castle, which they knew I would definitely like. And they were right, because when I was brought to my new house, I was actually speechless. We really came to a large castle with fountains, beautiful statues, and a well-tended garden filled with many, many flowers. And the inside was even more beautiful than the outside. When I got to my room, I cried with happiness. It was decorated in pink with a fairy tale theme. Even my bed was in the shape of a mini castle. After the orphanage, it took me a long time to get used to my new environment and life. It was difficult for me to realize that I was no longer an ordinary girl, but a real princess. My parents tried to pamper me. They didn't refuse me anything. This made an impact on me because over the years, I became a very spoiled girl. I could shout at the servants for my tea not being hot enough, or not ask but demand another expensive gadget from my parents. At school, many of the other kids avoided me because they were afraid to be friends with a member of the royal family. And rightly so, because I was capable of doing some pretty bad stuff if I wasn't happy. For example, in front of the whole class, I disgraced a guy who decided to ask me out by giving me a cheap bouquet of smelly daisies. It was funny. I basically threw the flowers in his face and told him that a beggar like him shouldn't even come near me. I believed that a princess should only date a rich and handsome prince. I was used to a life where everyone obeyed me unquestioningly, but that soon changed. My parents said that we needed to move to Washington for a while. They had very important things to do there that would take a year or two to deal with. I was not at all happy with the prospect of moving somewhere, but I didn't have a choice. I naively believed that my life wouldn't change after the move, but I was completely wrong. First, we temporarily moved into a 2-story house, which for me was cramped. Second, we took only a cook and a cleaning lady with us, which meant that no one would bring me food anymore. But the worst thing was that no one was afraid of me there. No one wanted to listen to me. No one even showed me any special attention or respect. As far as my new classmates were concerned, I was just a girl from another country, and that was it. I found it unbelievably insulting, and I decided to put them all in their place. I immediately told my classmates who I really was, but many of them didn't even believe me. They just laughed. That made me very angry. How dare they laugh at the princess herself? As proof, I showed them my social media and the documents that indicated my title, so they began to believe me, but no one listened to what I had to say. So I had to clean the chalkboard myself with a terrible and smelly rag, help the teacher distribute notebooks, and even eat at the same table with commoners. In the old school, I had my own table with separate meals. There, I ate crabs, shellfish, and steaks, and here, simple food that made me sick. I also had to get home by myself, and not in an elite Cadillac with a personal driver. It was just awful, and in the evening, I threw a tantrum in front of my parents. They looked at me sternly and said that I had become too spoiled and demanding. They said it wouldn't hurt me to take my crown off for a bit. I thought that they would support me, but they just made me even more upset. I didn't want to change, and I didn't want to give up my old life. I liked living in a castle in my kingdom and not here in Washington where no one cared about the fact that I was a princess. Despite all the problems, I did not lose hope of at least ordering someone around, and I managed to do it. One girl named Lizzie, a shy, mousy girl in my class, followed a step behind me and listened to every one of my orders and whims. She hoped by trailing after me to finally come out of the shadows. And she did, but I suffered because of it. Although Lizzie was an outcast, her classmates didn't like the fact that she was doing what I told her. They banded together and literally brainwashed her that she owes nothing to anyone. At first, Lizzie didn't listen to them, but then she decided to abandon me for the sake of a bunch of kids who only just started paying attention to her. I couldn't forgive them for this. Therefore, standing right at the blackboard, I loudly declared that they were obliged to obey me because I had a title, status, and wealth, and they were nobodies. My classmates were so angry at my words that they immediately started calling me names and also throwing pens, pencils, and this awful wet blackboard cleaning rag at me. Of course, I couldn't stand this and told my parents everything so that they would at least do something. In our kingdom, there was a large fine or even imprisonment for insulting someone in the royal family. Here, offenders went unpunished. My parents suggested that I try to make friends with my classmates and apologize to them because I was the one who provoked them. I had to overcome my pride and apologize to all of my classmates, but apparently they had no interest in hearing my apology. Not only did I become an outcast, but I was also bullied. One day, I was locked in a toilet stall for several hours, and then they hung a huge picture of me in the classroom so they could throw darts and paintballs at it. But that wasn't the worst part. Some of them filmed the moment where I insulted all of them in front of the blackboard on their smartphones and posted the video on the internet. I received so much angry feedback. The people from my kingdom were so disappointed with me, they didn't want an arrogant princess like me back. In the comments, people wrote that I wasn't doing anything for the benefit of the kingdom or society. People also shared stories of me acting terribly, insulting, or humiliating others. I felt so ashamed. I suddenly remembered that I was once an ordinary girl from an orphanage, and it was only by a lucky coincidence that I became a princess. My authority was undermined, and with it, my parents' authority. They were unhappy with my behavior and said that their deal in Washington was now in jeopardy. "Our partners will not cooperate with those whose family members behave rudely," said my father. Because of my actions, our respected family could become an international outcast. I decided to fix everything. I made a public apology on my Instagram and gave my word that my behavior would no longer cause such a public outcry. I also promised to engage in public activities and pay attention to the problems of the people in our kingdom in order to help them as much as possible in the future. As for my classmates, they tried to avoid me for a long time and played a lot of mean pranks on me. But when I organized a field trip for them to a planetarium that only rich people could get into, they started to thaw a little bit and treated me better. I realized that being a princess is not only about giving orders to people, constantly reminding them of your status, and behaving arrogantly. There's a responsibility to your family, your people, and your kingdom. This realization helped me to improve and calm down my temper. How do you think royalty should behave? And what do they owe their people? Write your answers in the comments, like the video, and share it with your friends.